What's good, YouTube? Warstorm here, coming at you guys with another video today. Today I'll be talking a little bit about the OCG ban list. As far as future videos, Zephyr Endymion is coming. I've got the deck built and ready, and the profile is ready. It just needs some editing. It'll be up in a few days. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the OCG ban list. And you might ask, Aura, well, why do you think that the OCG ban list matters? Like, you know, I'm a TCG player. I don't play into this list. Well, it matters for two reasons. One, it matters because it gives you an idea of what we're going to expect, because we are closing in on the no sooner than July 1st date. But it also gives us an idea of what we can expect at Worlds. If we do get a TCG ban list before Worlds, we'll know what decks are going to be good. And this gives us a very good idea of what we can expect and what decks will be good at that event. So, with all that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get straight into it. So the first two banned cards on the OCG ban list are Nightmare Mermaid and Ghidorah X. If you're unfamiliar with Ghidorah X, basically it's been part of a really popular FTK over in the OCG. So that basically means that Konami over there is like, the issue with it is that, you know, it's easier to ban it than edit the text. In the TCG, the text says original attack, so you can't summon it and then tribute off a 9k Equimax and immediately burn your opponent for game. It'll only burn for Equimax's original attack in that case. So that basically means that Konami is going to have, it basically means it's easier to ban it than change the text, similar to what Konami did in the TCG with Kaiser Coliseum. So it makes sense. It's definitely, you know, a card that's, you know, been on the eyes of a lot of players, and players would be glad to be rid of it. Nightmare Mermaid, it makes sense. I think it is the card that needs to go for TCG Orcus as well. If you want to leave Orcus playable and force them to use more cards to do the same thing, and make it so not every deck has a full Orcus combo, banning Mermaid is the correct thing to do. It just makes sense. Yes, you can still technically do Orcus things with like Isolde, Armageddon Knight, and Dark Grepher, but banning Mermaid means that some of the annoying combo pieces with Orchestrated Nightmare just require more cards. It does mean cards like Ibli and Idli, I think the name is, aren't quite as useful because you can't summon them from the deck. But let's be real, like Konami really doesn't care about those cards, and Idli will have its format where, you know, extra linking is a thing again, and we just drop Idli, can break the whole thing on its own. And we'll have to see. But overall, I think it's a pretty, these are the smart hits, these are good hits. I mean, for the as TCG players, though, I don't think we have to worry too much about Ghidorah. You know, I've seen some much less consistent FTKs running around for us TCG players, so I wouldn't worry too much. So the first two limited cards in the limited section are actually Salamangreat Gazelle and Thunder Dragon Colossus. These are big hits for those decks. These are probably the two key cards I think a lot of us TCG players have been pointing at. Gazelle is by far the best Salamangreat monster. It is it can dump spells and traps that can then be recycled. It can dump Spiny to make sure you can extend and get your combo. This thing on its own equals a full combo. It really and on top of that, it gives you a way to trigger your wolf on the opponent's turn. There's so many things this card does. It makes sense. Now in the TCG, I don't know if they're going to hit Salamangreats because they haven't really been around as long. And I think that they're going to have a little bit longer before we get some hits for the deck. But Gazelle, it makes sense. It is the best card in the deck. It's a level 3. Gets you the full combo on its own. It makes Stalio. It makes sense. Colossus, it also makes sense. Well, I don't know how it will be for us TCG players, because obviously we have the combo deck Danger Thunder Dragons with the Chaos monsters. It's a little bit different, but I still think limiting Colossus makes sense, because and especially in the OCG, where, you know, they don't play a lot of the Guard Dragon cards and stuff, so it's more pure over there. So limiting, it's a mistake on legs with protection. No reason the thing should be probably at more than one. Like, it's a pretty powerful. I understand in the TCG it's a little different for us, but it makes sense. It's definitely a card that a weird one is a Thunder Dragon Hawk going to 1. Not really that relevant. I mean, I understand the OCG that their decks are a little different because they don't have the danger monsters, but with it, this is the one Thunder Dragon that you can, especially if you're playing it with other decks like Dinosaurs, for example. While it's not as good in the OCG because, you know, Overraptor's at 1, Dragonhawk is like the one Thunder Dragon you're probably not playing at 3 because it's not a dark monster, so it doesn't work with Allure of Darkness. It's the one you can justify playing at 1, and limiting it makes almost no sense to me. I'm gonna be honest, like if Konami wanted you to really force you to play Dangers, this was the way to do it, I guess, you know. So interesting hit, but I don't think it's really that relevant because you can get away with one hawk anyways. Like, you know, you don't really need it. Then we have the last two limited cards. We have Ladybug. This is kind of copying the TCG. I'm guessing a lot of people they assumed a lot of people would have just, with Gazelle going to 1, they would have just used Debug as their normal summon. So also limiting Debug makes sense. And then Metaverse, I think a lot of this is curbing the Mystic Mind shenanigans. While there are other cards you can set with Metaverse, such as, for example, Sacred Village of Spellcasters, limiting it makes sense. It means that Lilith is, you only have that one Metaverse, and it's a lot more easier to deal with the Mystic Mind decks, although I don't personally feel Mystic Mind is something that's overpowered that the ban list needs to deal with, but that's another video. So, for the semi-limit section, you guys have known I've always been an advocate that the semi-limit section is a waste of time. I'm going to give you an idea like how many cards the OCG has in the semi-limited section. So they have 20. So after this ban list, they're pulling, I believe it's 6 cards off their semi-limit section, but they're putting 10 on. So the OCG ban list after this will have 24 semi-limited cards. Put that into perspective, like how many. And the whole problem with the semi-limit section in design is that I understand it's a point where Konami say, well, we want to experiment. We don't know how much, if this will be too much, so we're going to put it to 2 and see what happens. And that's understandable. And there are certain cards, like, for example, Reborn Tengu, Card Trooper, and Malicious, that in certain time periods are fine at 2. That's kind of where they belong. But at the same time, I think having 20-something cards on your semi-limit section is just absurd on so many levels. But anyways, enough about that. To the semi. Buster Dragon, I don't know why it was limited in the first place. You know, ABCs have been irrelevant for so long. Like, it shouldn't have been limited in the first place, in my opinion. Quick fix, interesting. I think putting it to 2 does help Spiral, especially with Danger coming to the OCG and the and it makes Machine Dupe a lot better because now you have more. Even just going 1 quick fix from your deck is just pretty dang good. And we all know how good Quick Fix is, even at 1. So it's going to be interesting to see if we see some Spiral decks crop up in the OCG, especially. But we'll have to see. Then we have the Dark Arm Dragon is interesting. Konami has tried this in the past during Shaddoll format and immediately bumped it down to 1. And part of me also feels like this is also another way to push people who are still playing Thunder Dragons into playing the Chaos build with Dangers coming out. It makes sense. It works with a lot of the Chaos cards, and it's searchable via Omni Dragon Brotar, so I guess it kind of makes sense. It's still a really ridiculously good card into playing into boards, but we are in 2019. That's still a good card, but I don't know if it's going to break the game. Grepher, again, this is something where Konami's moving it up. We don't know how much of a problem Grepher is, so we're going to bump it to 2. However, probably one of the worst changes on the list is semi-limiting Pankratops. So my problem with the semi-limit section is it should not be used for generic cards. It should not be used for cards like Pankratops because when you semi-limit a card like Pankratops, you encourage people to play it more. And because you're not going to see it because it's this weird dynamic. You saw this with Max C. People play something more when they have less copies of it because there's not a whole lot of reason not to. A card like Pankratops does not belong on the ban list. It is a really good staple card. Does not belong, and putting it on the semi-limit is a dumb thing to do. And Hyper Librarian, it's been at 3 in the TCG list, but I'm guessing because of Needle Fiber, they were a little bit more hesitant to bring it off the list, but now it's a thing. Now it's at multiple, so if you can actually do the OCG, you want to do the whole combo where you summon a Formula Synchron and draw 3 cards and summon a Blazar, you can do it now. Pretty cool. Then we have Cyberstein. This went to 1 during Metal Foe format, I believe. There were so many just really ridiculous combos with the thing. Interesting to see experiment with it at multiples again. We did recently get it back to the TCG as well, but we are talking about a day and age where almost every deck is playing Effect Veiler in some form, and 5,000 life is a lot, especially with the time rule changes. Trish, I think this is the first time Trish has been at multiples in years, and I don't think we're in the day and age where desynchro Trish for multiples is really going to be a relevant thing. It's just a good generic synchro monster to have around. Then we have Necrocycle. I don't know why this was limited in the first place. Just put it to 3. Mystic Mine. I'm in the same boat with this that I am with Pankratops. With Metaverse limited, I don't think this card needs to be on the ban list. Personally, I feel like it's a good thing to I know a lot of people are going to disagree with this, but I like having Mystic Mine around because it's one of the very, very few things that curbs the loop of combo decks that have been running around. And personally, I feel like if you really want to limit its consistency and with some of the degenerate strategies, things like Metaverse need to go. Mystic Mine itself is just a card that's, you know, it requires people to play around it, and I feel like it's a card that, you know, should be on the ban list. Same with Pinkertops. Now for the unlimited cards, so Stratos is at 3 in the OCG. This is pretty crazy, but we are in 2019. I feel like, you know, I believe Hero, I'm not sure where Hero lives in the OCG. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's at 2. It's going to be interesting to see how Heroes run around. But Heroes still don't have multiple copies of Shadow Mist, and it is one of their best cards. So, you know, having multiple copies of Stratos is not, with only one Shadow Mist, is kind of like, not really, because having them both would be ideal, right? Then Dynamite Knight, I believe Diagram is still banned in the OCG, so, you know, Dynamite Knight probably doesn't belong on the ban list over there anymore. Toad, I understand they had like a format where the card was really, the heroes were running around and being rampant, but I don't think Toad belongs on the ban list. Same with Small Book of Knowledge. And Solemn Judgment going to 3. This is pretty crazy. However, you are paying half your life points, you know, and however, if you're playing a super back row heavy deck, this is a pretty well-earned staple in 2019. I do think it's a pretty interesting, though, that the OCG has multiple Solemn Judgment. It's pretty crazy. And then we have Ceasefire. Ceasefire, I believe, has been at 3 in the TCG for quite some time. I could be mistaken. Outside of burn strategies, it hasn't really ever seen play, so I don't really think it's super duper relevant, but it's kind of cool to see it at 3, I guess, if you're playing burn. So anyways, it about comes to the end of the video, guys. Let me know what you guys think of the changes on the OCG ban list down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. It's Orstorm, signing out.